All right, hey guys, welcome to the video. If you're new here, my name is Curtis, and today we're gonna be talking about some of the best extrait de parfum concentrations that I have in my collection. Now for me, the concentration of a fragrance really doesn't matter too much. First of all, I'm going by smell. I would say the concentration and the performance of the fragrance is secondary to me. If it's a fragrance that smells great but doesn't have that good of performance, well, I'll just respray it throughout the day. It doesn't really matter so much for me, but I do know that there's a trend kind of going on right now of a lot of companies are producing extrait de parfum concentrations because I guess that's the demand. That's what a lot of people are looking for, and maybe even for some people they're putting the concentration of a fragrance before smell. To each his own. There's no kind of flack or criticism on that towards those types of people. We all have our own preferences, and that's okay. But for me, I always put smell first, and performance and concentration are kind of secondary. However, I did want to feature some extrait de parfums that I have in my collection that I feel are absolutely amazing. So if you're curious to hear my thoughts and opinions on these fragrances, then let's go. First up, from the house of Dorsay, we have Tonka Hysteria. Man, dense, thick, creamy, warm, sweet, and a little bit spicy. That's what you get here. This is such a gorgeous fragrance by the house of Dorsay. And actually, Tonka Hysteria is one of 3 extraits that they released this past year. So they have Tonka Hysteria, Flower Lust, and also Incense Crush. I do also own Flower Lust, which is an amazing fragrance, but I think out of all 3 extraits, Tonka Hysteria is my favorite. And this one slightly reminds me a little bit of Vanille Leather by BDK. However, it does push in a different direction. I feel like this one has much more depth and character to it. I do love Vanille Leather by BDK, but I do, and they're not the same, but they do kind of veer off in a similar direction. But Tonka Hysteria is amazing. Now, what I will say is this does have a slight powderiness to it, so it's not overly powdery, and I think if you guys have been following my channel for any amount of time, I'm not the biggest fan of powdery fragrances, but this one does kind of have a slight powderiness to it, so if you're someone who doesn't like powdery fragrances at all, you might want to kind of steer clear of this one. But this is a very, very gorgeous, yet powerful but elegant at the same time. And that's one thing Dorsay does very, very well. I feel like they're masters at creating elegant smelling fragrances. They are a French house, and they do that masterfully. I had talked about a little bit about the powderiness here, and what's contributing to that is that orris in here. That orris in here is bringing it that kind of powdery, slightly creamy edge. You also have some tonka bean in here, which is adding to that creaminess. And on the top here, you do have a bit of cinnamon, so it's giving that spice to this fragrance. But man, what a gorgeous wear. Longevity is 10+ hours, so a little goes a long way with this fragrance in terms of its sprays. Longevity, like I said, but projection also, this pushes out heavily. So, like I said, a little goes a long way, but there are no rules to this. Spray as much as you like. It's all about the wearing experience, and that's different for everybody. For me, I'll do about 2 sprays with this one, and that works a treat. But this is a gorgeous one, and definitely one to check out from the house of Dorsay. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Tonka Hysteria by Dorsay. Next up, from the house of Maxim perfume, we have Oud Indochine. Man, so Maxim perfume is one of those houses that their fragrance creations will take you on a journey. If you are at that point in your, fragrance kind of game, for me, I'm looking for those fragrances that are transportive, that can take me somewhere. And this is one of those fragrances. Now, upon initial spray with this, and you are hit with a heavy blast of spice, that is rounded out nicely by some beeswax and some vanilla. And what's really interesting about this fragrance is, off my skin, I'm getting kind of like a honey tobacco vibe, not necessarily up close, but in the air. That's what it's kind of giving off. But there isn't any tobacco listed in the note breakdown of this fragrance, so I'm not sure if it's the combination of notes or if they actually did use tobacco in here and it's just not listed. But it definitely comes off that way to my nose. Then in the dry down, you get the oud that starts to push forward here, but it is a very, pleasing, likable oud. It's not something that's funky or barnyardy or off-putting. It's a very likable oud, and that's combined with a bit of like some chocolatey nuances to help bring a sweetness to this fragrance. Man, hands down, the best smelling oud fragrance in my collection. I mean, I can't speak more highly of this brand. Now, to be very transparent, this was gifted to me by the brand, but man, they have my full support because Maxim, the perfumer behind this brand, just creates magical fragrances. He is able to put his emotion into the bottle, and that's something that is just absolutely astounding in my opinion. Again, a transported fragrance that will take you on a journey. So if you're looking for those types of fragrances, definitely check out the fragrances from this brand, Maxim Perfumes, because they are all like that. They will take you on a journey from beginning to end. And performance, 10 plus hours on my skin with a heavy sillage and projection. So, I think I've mentioned this on the channel before. For me, this is a fragrance that I'll do one spray to the back of the neck because the sillage is so heavy with this fragrance that, it's thick in the air. It is very thick. This is a cold weather fragrance for me. I tend to reach for this one in the winter time because that's when it works perfectly. But, if you're looking for an oud fragrance that is magical and, something that, doesn't go down the lines of being like a barnyardy or skanky oud, then definitely check this fragrance out because, man, the presence and character that this one has is just, like I said, magical. This is a great one and definitely one to check out. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Oud Indochine by Maxim Perfume. Next up from the house of Jeroboam, we have Ambra. Man, so this is an amber, spicy, vanillic, and slightly balsamic smelling fragrance. But this is such a gorgeous one. Man, it's a little bit spicy coming from some geranium in here, and there's a slight incensey quality to this, which is almost kind of bringing like a very minimalistic, smoky-like quality. But man, this is blended extremely well. And one thing that I really love about the house of Jeroboam is they create 30 ml extraits de parfums. So it's an easy bottle to just kind of grab and go and take with you on a trip. Yeah, I love the bottle sizes, and these, don't be fooled by the bottle size. These fragrances pack a punch, so little goes a long way with these. But if you're not familiar with the house of Jeroboam, they're a fragrance house that they're the sister company of Javoy, so they kind of sit in the shadows of Javoy. Javoy does get a lot of shine, and very well deserved. They have some amazing fragrances under that line, but Jeroboam is the house that just kind of gets overlooked a little bit, but man, they have some amazing ones. Now, I do have like 5 or 6 fragrances from the house of Jeroboam because they're really that good. But man, this is a beautiful one, especially if you like Ambry's style of fragrances with a slight different twist. Like I said, this one kind of comes off a bit balsamic. So, with that said, if you're not a fan of balsamic smelling fragrances, you may not enjoy this one, but I absolutely love it. Very easy wear. This is a great fragrance that I can wear in the spring, fall, and winter months. It just goes over a treat. And yeah, this is like a good 8 to 9 hour longevity with this fragrance, and this pushes out quite heavily, as I mentioned before. But yeah, this is a beautiful one and definitely one to check out. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Ambra by Jeroboam. Next up from the house of Nishane, we have Ambra Calabria. Man, so this is definitely one of my favorite fragrances, if not my favorite fragrance from the house of Nishane. I go back and forth a little bit between Ambra Calabria and Sultan Vetiver a lot, because those are both 2 of my favorites from the house. But man, this is a magical fragrance. This one was perfumed by Jorge Lee, and he has created a fragrance that will take you on a journey. Upon initial spray with this one, you are hit with a kind of like a bitter greenness. I think there's some galbanum in here. And that's combined with some citrusy notes. And as you start to move forward, this fragrance goes from like a green, citrusy, fresh style of fragrance into this kind of very light, ambery, vanillic fragrance that works perfectly in the spring and summertime. It's not one of those heavy or cloying style of ambery vanillic fragrance. This one is very light and airy. It's the perfect combination of those green citrusy notes combined with those ambery vanillic notes. It's just that this fragrance just goes on a 180 flip, and it's beautiful from beginning to end. Now, when you are in the kind of ambery phase, vanillic phase of this fragrance, you can still pick up on those kind of greenish notes here. So, I mean, I would say if you're a fan of green fragrances, you're probably gonna like this one. And also, you know, if you want kind of like a light ambery vanillic fragrance to wear in those summer months, spring and summer months, then check out this fragrance and give it time, because it needs a little bit of time to transition into those kind of ambery and vanillic notes. But man, the journey that this one takes you on is magical. This is a masterpiece in my opinion. And you know, I had recently done a video where I talked about this fragrance. I mean, because this is a masterpiece from the house of Nishane. Nishane is a house that has some really, really amazing fragrances. I mean, yeah, I'm a huge fan of the house, but this is definitely, you know, the top for me. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous wear, and it's definitely one to check out. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Ambra Calabria by Nishane. And finally, from the house of Maison Crivelli, we have Oud Stallion. All right, so this one is a very kind of oudy, saffron heavy leather fragrance. It is quite dark, has a mysteriousness about it, but also has something kind of sweet and almost like delicious about it. But this is a fragrance that pushes into that Middle Eastern category. And I remember when I wore this before, you know, I do live here in Japan, a comment that I got was like, wow, you smell like you're from the Middle East. It definitely gives off that vibe, and I think part of that is because of the intensity of this fragrance. This one is extremely heavy. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of difficult for me to wear, not because I don't enjoy it. I actually really, really love the smell of this one, but just because of the intensity of this fragrance. It is so thick, dense, heavy. You know, it can be suffocating if you overspray this one. At least that's how my experience has been. So this is a one push fragrance to the back of the neck. If I was going to be doing 2 pushes of this fragrance, I would do it under my shirt, you know, on my collarbone here. And then I would wear my shirt over. Because yeah, otherwise it is just extremely heavy. And like I said, it can be overwhelming. So you kind of need to be careful. At least that's my experience, you know. Other people, they may spray this one 10 times and be good to go. For me, this one is just very, very powerful. And I would say in terms of all the Maison Crivelli extraits, I mean, they are beastly nuclear in terms of their performance. And you know, when you wear a fragrance like this, you have to understand that it's a commitment. Like, it is not gonna come off your skin even after multiple showers. I can pick this fragrance up off my skin 48 hours later. And that's after, you know, like 3 showers, maybe more. No, it's not projecting or anything at that point, but you can still smell it. So, you know, I would say that's kind of the drawback. I mean, for me personally, I'm not necessarily looking for fragrances that have that type of, you know, performance and longevity. It's a bit too much sometimes for me. So I guess I have to understand that I have to commit, and then I have to be in the mood to wear a fragrance like this. But I would say in terms of the overall scent profile, the smell of it, I absolutely love. I do love that kind of dark mysteriousness that this has. It's a very kind of, almost kind of haunting in a way. Yeah, this, like I said, it's just very saffron and leather heavy. But one thing that I'll say, I feel like this house, you know, does get a bit of criticism as well, because it, you know, looking at the price point and considering that it doesn't use natural oud, you know, I do know this fragrance does get, or this fragrance house does get a bit of blowback for that. But I do really, really enjoy the scent profile and the smell of this fragrance. First and foremost, that's most important. But for me, just the drawback is just the performance is so nuclear beastly that I really, really have to understand. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to commit to this one because I know that it is not coming off. But, you know, if you're a fan of like kind of saffron-y, oudy leather fragrances that have a dark mysteriousness to it, then definitely check out a fragrance like this, but just understand that you're gonna have to commit because it is a beast. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Oud Stallion by Maison Crivelli. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. And let me know down in the comment section, what are some of your favorite Extrait de Parfums that you have in your collection? I'd love to hear about them. Well, I hope you guys are staying healthy and well, and I'll see you in the next video.